Okay, good morning. Coming at you live with another space defense update. This time we're looking at the month of April 2026. I'm going to start off strong with the US government here. So, on April 24th, the US Space Force announced that 12 companies are now competing to build space based interceptors for the Golden Dome of America. This is aimed at accelerating, and this is a corporate quote here, aimed at accelerating innovation in orbital missile defense. So, some context. I'm going to start off with another quote from the Department of War, and then we'll get into what the heck even is a space missile interceptor, and then some broader context on Golden Dome. So, starting on that latter piece, GDA, or Golden Dome for America, is a layered defense architecture designed to protect the United States from complex attacks, from ballistic missiles, from hypersonic missiles, and from cruise missiles, as well as advanced aerial threats. Okay, so what are we currently looking at? What's our current, missile interception situation? So this is where the context begins. So essentially, what's going on is we have a looming missile threat that has become more and more advanced since really the start of the Cold War. So we all know the Soviets and the Americans built these massive, skyscraper tall intercontinental, ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. ICBMs launch from Middle America or Central Russia. They go over the ice cap, and in Russia's case, they would go over the ice cap over Canada and then down into the continental United States, and they could reach the United States in something like as little as 6 minutes after launch. So extremely fast, quick turn missiles, and almost always, the most dangerous ones had nuclear warheads on them. So back in the 20th century, our missile defense enterprise within the Department of Defense and the greater U.S. government built ground-based interceptors. So these guys would shoot up from the periphery of America and intercept these Russian ICBMs as they came, down from space into America and over our cities. The issue is these guys are, one, extremely expensive and very inaccurate. That's number two. They're very inaccurate, like a 60% hit rate. So that's actually terrible. And I think there's an open source number out there. I think the open source numbers, we have like 47 of them. So, dude, that's not a lot of bullets, man. That's not a lot. That's not a lot. So ultimately, we got a couple problems to solve here. One, we need more. So 47 is not enough. Number two, 60% hit rate is way too inaccurate. We need 100% hit rate, especially when we're talking about nuclear warheads. Okay, we cannot fail. That's a non-fail mission. Okay, so those two pieces are what we're trying to solve with space-based interceptors. So now let's get into, so that was what I described as the current intercept situation. Got ground-based interceptors going after mid-course is what they call it. I'll describe this on the screen. Mid-course, and then hopefully not, but terminal phase, last resort, interceptions. What we have now, the next generation, is space-based interceptors. So we're going to have satellites with missile kinetic kill vehicles, or KKVs, what they call them, in space at all times, waiting for these guys to launch up. And then when they launch, we're going to attack from space so that we can actually hit this missile before it even has the opportunity to deploy its decoys. And decoys is a thing I didn't even get into, but ultimately these missiles have tons of decoys. They look like the nuclear warhead. That's all I need to know. They're very dangerous, and they reduce that 60% even lower. So not only can we now kill these missiles before they even reach space, now they can't deploy their decoys, which just drives our probability of complete mission, through the roof. So that's great. All of this started in 2025, very early 2025. So we're super early into it still. Anduril is one of the companies that I covered last video that has a space-based interceptor program on the ground as well. Got tons of sensors. They bought Exoanalytic. It's crazy. Anyway, spending too much time here. Got to move on. 12 companies. Bam. Space-based interceptors. Got any more questions? Hit up your friend ChatGPT, or leave a comment. That's probably smart. I should probably say that. Leave a comment. All right, number two. The SDA, or the Space Development Agency, has awarded HALO Europa Track 1 funds to Capella, an IonQ company, for advanced PLEO communications. So, pulling into this box here, they're going to develop 2 space vehicles with advanced RF payloads, mission-specific waveforms, and a ground-to-space infrastructure that will ultimately enable, quote, robust end-to-end communications to pull directly from that. So, and then moving into the second box, we get a little bit more specific on what Capella is actually going to offer. And this is perfect. I know it sounds maybe general, but let's go. So they're going to demonstrate advanced tactical waveforms. They're going to provide adaptive beamforming. And through both of those things, or maybe a third, they're going to secure tactical communications. They're going to do all this from low Earth orbit. So listen, that's a lot of words. What is beamforming? What does advanced waveform performance mean? Well, look, I think we need to combine some things here. So I will define beamforming, but there's a piece that I want to get into, and that's combining what they say here with advanced waveform performance and secure tactical communications. I think those things work hand in hand. To flip it, I think they're going to secure tactile communications by using advanced waveforms. And what that says to me is DSSS. So this isn't something that's been proliferated across the military yet, but is definitely a legacy system that still has so much modern potential. We'll get into that too. So what is DSSS? But we'll start with beamforming. So essentially, modern communication satellites have the ability to define, via software, what their satellite is going to listen and respond to. So, for example, a commercial satellite, non-military satellite, will dedicate parts of its transponder to specific regions of the world. If I'm DirecTV, I probably have a North America transponder, a South America transponder, or even more specific than that, maybe Central America versus South America versus East and West, etc. Right? That's the commercial side. If I'm on the military side, if I have a very sensitive mission or a no-fail mission where I can't be jammed, or I really don't want my signal to be intercepted, then my military satellite can software define regions of the world out of its listening area or transmitting area, which is so crazy and such a cool capability that is coming online. It's been online for a long time now, but the military is really starting to come around to it. So, for example, I could be a soft guy in Baghdad carrying out like a counter ISIS, counter Iranian militia mission, using satellite communications. In the olden days, a third of the world would be able to listen to those comms if they had the right equipment. These days, you can beamform out everybody except your sender, HQ, for example, and your receiver, the guys on the ground, and vice versa. So that's a great capability. And then on top of that, they're in LEO. So the average, dwell time, I guess, of a LEO satellite from horizon to horizon is like 9 minutes. So to intercept signals from any one LEO satellite that's a tall ask, especially when you have advanced waveforms. So what is DSSS? Well, DSSS, or Direct Sequence Spread Spectrum, was invented in World War II to hide and secure radio frequency communications. So it's great stuff. And there's so much science here that I will spare you. But ultimately, you get 3 things out of it. You get secure SATCOM performance. DSSS is used in SATCOM and tactical line-of-sight radio comms. It's used on WGS, or Wideband Global Satcom, which is a military constellation, to secure communications. If you don't have the code for DSSS signals, you can't listen to them. It's like a key to a door. If you don't have that decryption key, then you're not going to be able to read the signal, or frankly, even notice that there's a signal there, which is super cool and is really unique to DSSS. Number 2, anti-jamming. So this signal sits below the noise floor. Essentially, imagine you're in a room, right? This is a typical metaphor. Imagine you're in a room and there's someone yelling, right? And there's two people on the other side of the room and they're yelling at each other. You're in the middle. They're yelling. So you can just tune in. You're not eavesdropping, right? They're yelling at each other. You don't have a choice. You have to listen. That is unsecured communications, from, for example, the Geo Belt. That's like free cable, right?
Tom, get your head on, please. Are we playing?
Oh no. Our love fern! It's dead.
No, honey, it's just sleeping.
You let it die.
Then you have something a little bit more secure. They're whispering to each other, more direct. Less energy is wasted that way. So there's a commercial use case for beamforming. But also there's a military use case because that would be more of a whisper. Two people whispering to each other. You can't hear it from across the room. Maybe you don't want to, or maybe you do, and now you can't because they're whispering. That is all louder than DSSS. DSSS is like telepathy. These people are either speaking, well, really, they're speaking so quietly that, well, they're whispering to each other and they're speaking in a different language. That's maybe the best thing to compare it to. So unless you can, one, hear them, you're in their footprint, and two, you know the language that they're speaking, you're not going to be able to understand it or even know that it's there. So that's what they have. So that's anti-jamming. You can't speak louder than them because they're directly connected to each other. And they're speaking a different language. So there's counterintelligence insurance policies there, and there's anti-jamming insurance policies there because these two senders and receivers are so locked in with each other. A traditional brute force jammer couldn't knock them off. And then finally, sorry to go crazy there. Finally, you have higher efficiency. So since it's a code-based waveform, and once again, I won't get into the science there, but since it's a code-based waveform, you can ultimately fit multiple users on the same area in space. So every user will get the other user's data, but if they don't have that other user's code to decrypt the data, then it's like it's not even there. So you can send a lot of stuff over the same bandwidth and still retain that privacy and deconfliction. So that's what Capella is building. That's super cool stuff, and it's great to see that DSSS and adaptive beamforming, potentially on-demand beamforming, is coming to the forefront. So that's awesome stuff. All right, what do we got next? Number 3, U.S. government has issued, this is cool. U.S. government has issued guidance for American Space Nuclear Power Initiative. So earlier this month, the executive issued National Security and Technology Memorandum number 3. You can find this in the link in the description. And this establishes several things here. So ultimately, NASA and the Department of War are going to work in parallel and in competition to deliver in-space nuclear reactors. So some points here. Number 1, establish the National Initiative for American Space Nuclear Power. The United States will lead the world, in developing and deploying space nuclear power for exploration, commerce, and defense. Number 2, safely deploy nuclear reactors in orbit as early as 2028 and on the moon as early as 2030. Number 3, the overall strategy for this initiative, this is the big hitter, I think, in my opinion, is to conduct parallel and mutually reinforcing NASA and Department of War design competitions. So we've already heard a ton. We're only 3 points in. But I like this last point because this, instead of the typical trope of these separate, disparate government agencies are developing the same thing unbeknownst to each other in silos, this initiative is directing two massive budget beneficiaries, if you will, to develop the same technology in competition. So I think that's great. And it goes on to say, I'll pull out a piece, parallel and mutually reinforcing. So it's not like a hostile corporate environment. This is, hey, we just discovered this one thing over at NASA, DOD, have you found this yet? And or would you like it to be included in your project, etc. So that's good stuff. That's good competition. That's what we need. Moving on. Number 4, NASA is to build a Lunar Fission Surface Power FSP reactor, which means on the surface of the moon, and an option for nuclear electric propulsion, or an NEP. So the NEP option is that's your in space, I don't know why they say that, in orbit reactor, and then your FSP is going to be the moon-based reactor. And finally, there's tons of points here. I only pulled out 5. The last one here is the DoD is looking to build a mission-enabling mid-power in-space reactor by 2031. So to me, this says a reactor on a satellite. But thinking about this again, NASA's delineation has both. We have a lunar fission surface power reactor, and we have an option for nuclear electric propulsion. Two things which are obviously very different geographically, if you will. One is very obviously on a surface of something, in this case the moon, we can infer, and an option for nuclear electric propulsion, which, if you read the document, is very obviously for a satellite. Whereas the Department of War's initiative and directive from the executive branch, they only need to build something in space. So that's interesting. We might see a DoD presence. I wouldn't even say it, but I don't know. Opens the door for a DoD presence on the moon. That's what I'll say. Okay, moving away from the U.S. government into commercial. Number 1, Planet Labs has banned all imagery taken over Iran. I'm sticking to the script. Starting with a 14-day delay on imagery, which was announced earlier this year. Planet Labs has increased that 14-day delay to an indefinite ban on all imagery taken over Iran. But what's interesting here is, according to the BBC, the ban seems to also extend across the Middle East and all of the Middle East conflict areas, including Iran, but also including Iraq, Lebanon, Gaza, and Israel. So that's very interesting here. And some pundits, the BBC themselves, and several other space-focused news agencies have mentioned, Planet Labs mentioned in their announcement of this indefinite ban that they made the decision themselves. This is obviously to support American efforts in the Iran war. But Planet said that they made the decision themselves. So I'm sure they did, right? But the thing is, Planet has a plethora of contracts with the U.S. government and with the Department of War. So yes, maybe there was no intrinsic motivation. Maybe there was no, edict from the government to say, "Hey, Planet Labs, you will stop taking imagery over Iran." But definitely some external motivation here is possible. I'll say that it's possible. But I mean, I don't know. Look at the facts. So anyway, Planet Labs has banned all imagery of Iran, maybe setting a precedent. Moving on to Vantor, formerly Maxar, and this is our last story for today. This is groundbreaking stuff. Vantor has announced 2 new satellite systems. Number 1, Vantor Vantage, and Vantor Pulse. Number 2, capable of 20 centimeters, and these are EO satellites, electro-optical satellites, capable of 20 centimeters for the Vantage and 40 centimeters resolution for the Pulse. So the big hitter here is that together, these systems will have a revisit rate of every 15 minutes for any given location on Earth. So Vantage and Pulse are 2 constellations of satellites. They are not 2 satellites standalone. With these 2 constellations working in tandem with 20 centimeter and 40 centimeter resolution respectively, we're going to see every 15 minutes. So that's groundbreaking, and just brings the point home that we are not living in a world of hiding in plain sight anymore. Putting Area 51, putting advanced aircraft and new developmental systems at Area 51 out in the open and assuming that it's secure just because it's behind some mountains in the desert somewhere. Those days are over. Maxar, a commercial company, Vantor, is going to have satellites over Area 51 every 15 minutes with as good as 20 centimeter resolution. So that's insane. Available to the entire world to see. So that's Area 51. That's the Pentagon. That's the White House. That's North Korea's most secretive sites. That's Russia's most secretive sites. That's every conflict zone, every emergency and humanitarian zone in the world. That's groundbreaking, is what that is. And is ushering in, that will usher in a new era of intelligence and commercial intelligence as a whole. I think. So anyway, that's our last story for April. I was super late on this one, so you can expect the May edition to come out here in about maybe a week, 2 weeks. So good stuff. That's all I have to say. Just a quick review. Thanks for joining me today. If you guys enjoyed this type of content, if you want me to speak a little slower, subscribe. Peace.